Welcome back, crew. Today we're making a 4-deck sail bag for the Venture of Newport. Here's the plans. Might need to go back and pause it. So the first thing we're doing here is I'm actually making a template to kind of test it out, and to do that I needed a large piece of paper. Wrapping paper is perfect. It's got lines and grids on the inside, makes it easy to make straight lines. So we'll measure it out, draw the lines, and then do a test. We use our cheap scissors to cut it out. Don't want to use our good ones. Keep those in the case. Next we'll draw the curved radius by folding in half, and then we only have to draw a half circle. Measure the string out to the correct distance, and then use my finger as the pivot. And we'll cut it out and fast forward, make it go by quick. Alright, now we got our primary shape here. Looking pretty decent. Next we're going to test fit the bag by actually putting the sail in there to see if we got the right dimensions. After the testing here, you'll notice it was a little bit tight once I try to close it. So I actually ended up adding 2 more inches to all the sides when I did the actual canvas. Here we're gonna just cut the fabric out. We got about what we needed, so we're just gonna cut it to easier to work with using a hot knife, which is amazing to have. Quicker than scissors, and then it seals the edges so it doesn't unravel or fray. It glides smoothly when using a tempered glass cutting board, which I got that from Sailrite. Only problem is it's not long enough to fit the whole bench, so just got to move it around, start the cut again. It's crazy how easy it is to keep the lines pretty straight with that hot knife. Right here I'm going to add a crease line. I'm going to go pretty heavy on it, and that's our center line, which that crease line I believe is still in there even after months of usage, because I really pressed hard and had the iron on high. Unlike chalk, it never went away. Once again, we'll draw a radius using finger as the fulcrum and sharpie it along. Perfect. Edge to edge. This was a little tougher to cut with the hot knife, being that it's 2 layers of the fabric. So it just had to take a little bit more to pull it apart because it wanted to melt together. That probably would have been better while cutting if I was pulling the fabrics apart, but I wanted to keep everything straight and I wanted to make sure I cut the line. Like I said, it was a little bit harder to cut because it was gluing back together. As you see, I had to kind of pull it apart with a little bit of force. And then we'll spread it back out. We still got some more cuts to do. We got to take off the little edges, little triangles. You see two lines there. The line on the left was a mistake. Good thing I measured twice and only had to cut once, because that would have been an end and would have had to start with a whole new piece. And here we go with the basting tape. It's a acrylic tape. It doesn't yellow in the sun, and it's really sticky. This allows the sewing of the pieces to be very easy, so it doesn't slide around. I don't have to worry about pulling pins or clips or anything like that. Just stick it and sew right through it. The roll I got for this project was 36 yards, and I think I used it up. If not, I only had a few yards left. We're going to put on a polyurethane webbing. It's really strong. We did this so I didn't have to make a hem by folding over the fabric to give the snaps and all that something to bite to. Just all time. This was about 10 hours of footage knocked down to 28 minutes. There's a lot of stuff cut out. And more basting tape. The basting tape will go around these edges quite well. It can handle a little bit of curve without even bunching up. Even if it does bunch up on a tight corner, it's not going to hurt really. It's so thin. It's getting pretty good with the basting tape. I even hold the roll with one hand while pressing with the other. But the tearing of it, I still ain't got that down. More webbing. We'll go around the whole thing with the webbing. That was done with 2 pieces, because trying to make that corner, it would have just not looked very well. So once you put it down, you really got to press on it to get that glue adhesive activated so it don't move on you. And then as I went, you'd pull more of the wax paper off so you didn't accidentally stick something you weren't supposed to. And once again, hot knife, especially on the webbing, it's more prone to fray than the fabric. Once again, we're going to use the flat iron to make a nice crease. This is bias tape made by Sunbrella, so it's cut at an angle to the fabric so it moves well. But by doing that with the flat iron, it makes it a lot easier to work with, especially being that this assembly is really thick. We'll put basting tape on both sides of the bias tape. So I'd go so far, tape it, and then I'd go and iron some more length and continue along. The bag was done in one continuous piece. The corners are tricky because it's a tight bend and there's a lot of material, but we were able to get them stuck down. So I made 2 of these bags. So this is the first bag, and then I had to do it again. It's a little quicker on the second bag. Instead, move it along, pull some of the wax paper, press it down, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Maybe wonder why I don't have the sound on and I'm having to voice over. Well, there was lots of copyrighted music I was listening to the whole time on Pandora. I didn't think they would appreciate that. Here we are, we're doing a voiceover video. And cut it a nice 45 so it looks well. That's probably more than a 45. That was probably a little excessive on the taper. And we'll iron down the parts that were having trouble sticking, especially where the bias tape went over another piece of it, the overlap. And then I did the corners, I pressed them down really hard. Here we are to the sewing machine. This thing went through it really well. Got a sewing guide on. Here on the corner it's hard to get it, so some of the sewing was done by hand and I had to be careful and push the fabric in myself. Even a few times I lift the presser foot up and slide it just a little bit because I was having trouble getting over all those creases in the fabric. Then we turn it. The needle's still buried in the fabric so we don't lose our place. And then we got it turned back on the sewing guide, and at the beginning we'll hand turn the wheel until we get enough material under the dog teeth down there to grab it and pull it through. Once that, it's pretty quick. Here we got about 10 layers of fabric at that point with the bias tape overlapping. So there's a big hump, so it has to go really slow to try to get over it. And it looks pretty decent though, even with about 10 layers of fabric. Here next we're going to put on the chafe guards. They're leather, also from Sailrite. I didn't stain it or do anything. It's just a chafe guard. We did it with clear plastic, and we're making it oversized because it's just for protection, so it doesn't have to be cut perfect or measured out. These sail plans originally were from a guy that owned a Venture of Newport. He was a big contributor to the Venture of Newport community. It was Henry Rodriguez, and these plans he had made were in a magazine. I think it was Great Lakes Sailors, but they're no longer around, unfortunately. The plans weren't very detailed, so most of this you kind of had to figure out yourself. It gave you the general idea, but it didn't give you any measurements. You figured those out yourself. Here I got my good Guggenheim scissors. These things are heavy, but they cut the leather really well. They're worth the 30 or 40 bucks I paid for them. Like I said, I keep those in a box, keep them nice and protected. almost got her out. Okay, go up there and test fit. Once I saw the test fit was good, I went back, rounded the edges and the corners to make it look better. Alright, we got all the pieces cut, got them rounded. Next thing would be to apply some more basting tape. But before we do that, I had to put another row of stitches on the webbing because I had just sewed the outer of them. But figured I might as well, before I put the leather down, run another stitch on the inside of the webbing. Which that was pretty easy. There was only 2 layers of fabric there, so the machine was really quick to do that. Couldn't imagine how long it would take to have sewn this by hand. Probably still be working on it. Now it's time for the basting tape. Went with 2 layers because it was having a little bit of trouble sticking to the webbing. And most of this was just done by eyeball. I think I did fold it in half to kind of get an idea of where center was. But it don't need to be perfect. Just good enough to the naked eye. And to the sewing machine. So this was the first, since it wasn't a big piece, I pretty much just turned the sewing wheel by hand. There, I was messing with the tension of the presser foot. We're going through about 6 layers of fabric there, 1 thing of leather. Here I'm just showing you how we work with these big assemblies through that small throat of the sewing machine. Typically roll it up, fold it up, or just shove it through. You could sew a full-size sail with one of these. You would typically start in the middle and work out, so you didn't have as much material going through it, but it could be done. Not that I'd want to, but it could be done. The round dial there with the numbers, that is for the stitch length, and the numbers above it that are long ways. That's for the zigzag length. Here, that's the machine just going through it. Pretty easy, not hard at all for this industrial machine. At one point, I had to go through 10 layers of cloth and 1 layer of leather. We're using a rotary hole cutter. Does a really nice job. This is a die so we can put on the snap buttons. When it was going through the leather, it was quite thick, so it was a challenge to get the fit in there. Like a rivet design. Then we'll give it a couple taps, and that was enough for these. Just a tap, a tap, a tap. If you hit it too hard, you'd bend the twist fastener. This is got a oval and then 4 more prongs on it. And it took a lot of force to get it to go through. Here I'm hitting it a couple times with a little hammer and it barely even cut anything. I tried a few more times with a little hammer, but eventually we get the big hammer out. There we go. No more messing around. You get stuck in there pretty good going through that many layers. Now this could be cut out with scissors and a hot knife, but with this many twist fasteners going in, I opted to buy the special punch. Here we're bending over little metal ears to hold this female part of the twist connector on. And we'll just repeat this. I didn't show it, but we'll repeat it all the way around the sewing bag. Every so many inches, evenly spaced. So where you put the twist locks is how you tensioned where the ropes and stays went through, and you didn't want them too big. And the last little bit of sewing was putting on the little bitty webbing handles. I didn't pin those or basting tape those. They didn't have to be perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a box X stitch. There's a box with an X in it, all thread, which is sturdy enough for these bags. It's probably actually overkill for these bags. That box stitch with the X looks pretty decent. What takes the longest on this is because you had to keep turning the bag and keep turning it, is just trying to get it through the machine. The sewing part of it was nothing. And we do some back stitching, lock the thread in so it don't come apart. Then I would typically melt the ends of the thread and then push it into the fabric. And we're about done with the X stitch. Whew, we're done with that side. And rinse, repeat. Once again, we'll do the same thing. X box stitch. Then we got to do the other side with the handle, same process. And here we are with the finished product. Turned out really nice. It has been a game changer having them. Wonderful. And here is with it, with the sail in it. Like I said, I've made it a little bigger. And here's a picture on the boat. Later we'll show a demonstration how it works. Thanks for watching, crew. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.